Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Crissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome to another episode of Suburban Warrior. I am your host, Crissy Pfeiffer, and I'm bringing you another inspiring warrior story today. My goal is that you will feel connected and empowered to take action in your own life after hearing from this another amazing suburban warrior. So I'd like to introduce Cara Bradley. She is the best-selling author of On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. She is the host of On the Verge Podcast. She has 30 plus years of experience in performance coaching for Fortune 500 companies as well as premier college sports teams. She has worked as the mental strength coach to over a dozen Division I collegiate sports teams, including the 2009 national champions Villanova football team and the 2016 and 2018 national champions Villanova men's basketball team. But those are all just credentials for Cara, and why I love her is her no-nonsense, tell it like it is, sass and spunk. She has been a great friend to me. She's an awesome colleague and a wonderful mentor to me for the last several years. And she has so much knowledge to share. I cannot wait to have her share it all with you. So welcome, Cara.
Well, thank you, Crissy. And as you're talking, I'm just laughing because we really do laugh together. And thank you for doing that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We certainly, when we have, collaborated and worked together in the past, and all I know is that when I work with you, not only do I learn a ton, but man, do we have fun together. And that is really what it's all about, isn't it?
Totally. I tell you, one of my favorite things in the world is just to be with women that are fired up, that are curious about life, and that are able to really empower and acknowledge one another. Like, to me, that is perfection. When we can sit with each other, we can laugh, we can make fun of ourselves and each other, and we can also acknowledge each other's successes. So I want to say kudos to you for this fantastic podcast.
Oh, thank you. That is so sweet. This definitely feels like a calling to me and a labor of love, that's for sure, because I truly believe that we are all suburban warriors out there doing our thing and trying our best and living our best life. And I think we all just need a little help, every day. We need a little help and inspiration from others. And I'm hoping that this is what this podcast serves as. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here. So I know you have so many amazing things to share, but what I love hearing you talk about, and what I think a lot of our listeners could benefit from hearing about is, we are all really, quote unquote, busy, right? We hear this all the time. I'm too busy. I don't have time, and really not only for other people or for our families or friends, but for ourselves. And I feel like that I'm too busy cliche keeps people feeling very stuck, feeling very much in their comfort zone. And really, it's like an excuse to just not try something new, put yourself out there. And every time we hear that little voice in our head that says, maybe you should try this, or maybe you should do this differently, we just kind of shrink almost right back into that comfort zone. So I know that you're what I think is an expert on this and how to getting us feeling out of busy into our best selves. So that's what I would love to talk to you about today. But we might want to start with you. And you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into being such a badass.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, what's so interesting about me is that I'm really and haven't been and wasn't a really interesting child or teenager. In fact, I was pretty run-of-the-mill, middle of the road student, athlete, everything. And, it's funny, I say that now because I don't think that, kids are allowed to be just mediocre anymore, right? But when I was growing up, I was the middle between two brothers. So I had to be a warrior as a young girl. I had to, not cry and kind of hold my breath and, take it in some ways. But I also became fiercely independent. And but I noticed that, throughout my middle school and my high school years, I was just really a very average student, and I was an average athlete. I was average. And it wasn't until I got to college that I started to tap into both my intelligence, which we all have, right? I just didn't believe it, and my physical capacities. And so that's what really made me curious to, what was blocking me my whole childhood, and what convinced me that I wasn't enough. And so for the rest of my life, I had some, pretty significant experiences in college that really propelled me on this path of understanding human potential, understanding how we access our mental capacity, our physical prowess, what has to happen. And so back then, which was like ancient, right? Because this isn't yesterday, right? It's many decades ago. There was no internet. There was, no Google. And so I went to the library and I took out some books on yoga and meditation because that seemed like it was going to be the most understandable, because it's these are old practices, and there were some really, really ancient books on them. And that's where I began my own spiritual journey, I guess you can say, and also just a lifestyle to understanding how can I be my best moment to moment. What does that look like? And what I learned, and what I really, really believe, is that we all have incredible capacity, every single one of us. And so I've dedicated my life to teaching practices, mental, physical practices, to everyone. All I want to say is, if I can do it, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm no smarter. I'm no more physically talented. I really am not. And I'm just really curious. And so I've developed over the years just ways to help everyday people, including, elite athletes and CEOs and everything, but really all of us, to help us understand, how do I shift from feeling stuck, right, to shining. And I have all these cliches. My daughters always roll their eyes. How do I go from busy to best, from frazzled to flow, and anything that works, any way I can help people really start to trust themselves, that makes me really happy.
Well, I love that because I have so many cliches as well. And boy, do my kids roll their eyes every time I say them. But they do work. And even though my kids roll their eyes, I know that they're taking in and they're getting the meaning behind those cliches. So, I love that busy to best one that you have, because like I said, I really do feel that, boy, like you were talking about, back in the day, our lives were very different. There was no Google, there was no internet, there was no email, text, social media, which all lends to keeping us really busy all the time, because we're always on. There's never any downtime. So, I think that's something that we all struggle with, not just us as adults, but kids as well. But I know, where do we start when it comes to, living from busy to best? Like, how do we begin to actually get out of that frazzled, busy state, to even like look within ourselves to say, okay, what's the next step, or what's the first change I should make to start, living this optimal life or getting to where I need to be?
Yeah, that's the number one question, right? How
Yeah,
do I do it? And
exactly.
honestly, the answer is really simple. She's laughing.
I am. I love
But
it.
the answer is really simple. It's awareness. It's
Mm.
becoming aware of our state moment to moment. So where am I right now? Like, where are you, Crissy, right now? How are you feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually? How am I in this moment? And that's simple mindfulness. That's a mindfulness practice. Mindfulness is just being able to be aware of where we are in any given moment. So you don't need to sit and meditate to be mindful, but you can cultivate that awareness. You can become better at being aware through meditation practice. But so the way I start with people, whether they be an athlete or a suburban warrior, is just to say, where are you right now? How are you feeling in this moment? And, it's interesting because when I ask that question, most of us, including myself, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so crazy busy. My mind is racing, or, I'm feeling a little fatigued. I'm worried about my kid. I feel so disconnected or lonely. And I just, we're in this despair.
Yeah, I feel
But
like disconnected and lonely
mm,
are big ones too. I think that people don't admit to those as often as busy. It's easy to say we're busy, right? Because then we look like heroes. Oh, we're so busy. We have so much to do. But I think that's like a sort of a cover up for the loneliness and disconnected. And whether it's disconnected from self or from, family, friends, just another social circle, whatever it is, that's harder to admit to. But I think, again, that's where we are in this time, with social media, and people don't pick up the phone. It's just text. It's, you don't get to see people face to face as much. So I think
yeah,
that's a big one as well. It's like not just feeling
absolutely.
disconnected with, feeling disconnected with both ourselves, if you don't have the awareness to really get to know yourself, and with others.
Yes. Yeah. And so the first step to change is just to recognize
Mm.
without the beating up, right? So in mindfulness practice, we always say it's moment to moment awareness in a non-judgmental way. So this isn't about beating ourselves up. It's just about being really honest. Like right now, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I'm a little cranky, I'm a little hangry, which I get. But it's that honesty. So with that, Crissy, it's really good to be aware of the, let's say, I call them unhelpful states, right? But we also want to be aware of the states of being when we feel most empowered and alive. And this is one of the things that I've really focused my work on, because we are just innately focused on the negative, because that has been a survival mechanism for us, is to assess a situation and to really to sense whether it's dangerous or not, right? So we're very attuned to focusing on the negative. But the question that I ask, and I ask this across the board, I mean, I have asked this honestly to, high schoolers, to leading executives. I've asked this in assisted living homes that I've spoken to, I've presented at, to 90-year-olds. Is the question is very simply, what does it feel like to be awake and alive? What does it feel like to be at our best, in our best state? And so I always get the same answers. I mean, the answers are so universal. It's clear, calm, happy, confident, engaged, connected, at ease, peaceful. I can go on and on, but I'm sure that you and your listeners, can come up with the same answers. So that's the first question. What does it actually feel like to be in our best state? And then the second question is, what makes you feel awake and alive? And I talk about this in my book, On the Verge, a lot. What makes you feel awake and alive? So I'm going to ask that to you. How would you answer that?
So what makes me feel awake and alive is several things. I really feel awake and alive when I'm with my family and we're all together and it's all of us and we're laughing and hanging out and sharing stories and just having fun as a family. That's probably one of my most energized states of being for sure. And my next one is absolutely when I feel like I am inspiring and empowering someone to make a change in their life or to take action to improve their life, even if it's something very simple. And because I've always been a cheerleader. I have always been a cheerleader. I am constantly cheering people on. I really hate when I see other people unhappy and sad. And I want them to take full advantage of this one life that we have. So when I'm helping people do that is when I feel energized and most passionate. And I would say probably the third one is when I'm personally working out, when I am moving my body and pushing myself and challenging myself physically. And that makes sense because obviously just chemically we are energizing ourselves, right? Physiologically. So that's probably the third one.
That's awesome.
That's when I feel it.
Well, you are a great cheerleader, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
You know, one of my absolutely favorite quotes, and I've said this to my daughters for years, is that empowered women empower women.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So when we can empower each other, it's a good indication that we're feeling empowered. So I just wanted to share that. So I have one more question for you, because we often forget about this. What place or places make you feel awake and fully alive?
So I absolutely feel awake and fully alive when I am near the ocean, when I'm on a beach, when I'm near the ocean, sunsets or a sunrise. But for some reason, for me, it's more so a sunset. I really feel just connected. I feel energized. And lately I will say, because obviously I don't live by the ocean all the time, it is just being out in nature and noticing and being present has really made me feel, a connection to something deeper, a more spiritual place for me. And so I think definitely just nature and more so the beach when I can be there. And I love being home. As much as I love traveling, I love being in my home.
So perfect. And so universal, because everybody says water. Everyone says nature. Everyone says sunsets. And so here's the thing about all the answers that you gave, they're free. They're free and they're accessible. And so because they're free and accessible, we tend to, as a consuming population, we tend to step right over them. And we tend to look at the stuff that we should buy or the course we should take, or I need to do this, when really our best states are available for free,
Wow. Yeah.
right? So start to notice, and this is one of the things I often suggest to people, is when you go to bed at night, you can do your gratitude, because I love gratitude is such an amazing practice for staying happy. But also look back at your day and think about 3 times during the day when you felt your best, when you felt awake and alive, or whatever words, insert the words that work for you, when you felt most empowered or most connected, and you can look back and you can say, like, for me, oftentimes it's like that, it's the first cup of coffee after my meditation practice. And I'm just like, all right, I'm here. They can be so simple.
Yep.
But when we can start to recognize when we feel our best, and then we start to become aware of those moments that are unhelpful, right? The unhelpful states of stress, speed, busy, frazzled, sad, disconnected. Now we've got something to work with. Now we can learn how to shift from busy to best. And I teach this through something I call mini wins. Mini wins are really simple practices, again, totally obvious, right? Obvious things. But how do we shift our physiological state, our psychological state, our emotional state in a few minutes so that we can constantly assess, am I busy? I call it busy me and best me, right? Really silly. Again, so cliche, but they tend to work. Am I busy me or am I best me? And without the beating up, we can just say, wow, I'm feeling pretty busy. I should do one of these little mini wins to help me get into my best state in this moment. Your best state right now may not be your best state at 4 o'clock today. It might not be your best state tomorrow or in the spring. It's your best state right now. How can I be at my best, my most compassionate, my most clear, calm place in this moment with all of the situations that are, bombarding me right now?
That's great. And I love that. I love the fact that you clarified that our best state, it can be different depending on what day it is, what time it is, what's affecting you in your life, right? Because you could feel really, really great at one time and then beat yourself up another time because you're not feeling that way. So I think that clarification is huge. But what can you tell us? So you talked about the mini wins. Can you give us an example or two of what those mini wins are? Like, what is that something that you could do? What is that mini win that can get you to feeling more like your best self?
Absolutely. And again, like I said, they are so obvious. They're hidden in plain sight, but we tend to step over them because you can't package them and sell them. So we don't see them sold to us all over Facebook, right? So the most obvious is just breath. 5 deep, coherent breaths. And what's a coherent breath? Coherent breath is a deep balanced breath. So it's about 5 or 6 seconds on your inhale and 5 or 6 seconds on your exhale. When we do this, so research shows that we can shift from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state, which are fancy terms for either stressed or feeling more relaxed, in a matter of minutes. So 5 in and 5 out for a round of 5 can shift us physiologically and psychologically. And it works. So that's a very obvious mini win. Another mini win that I love is silence. Silence and stillness. So we are speeding through life all day long. I mean, we've got that phone in our hand. We've got, multitasking everything. We are just on fire. And sometimes just putting the brakes on and pausing, really just pausing and closing your eyes. Now, it could be a scary place, especially if there's stuff that we really don't want to face, because stillness is a mirror. But it could also be such a rich place for us to just become friends with ourselves. So those are 2 simple mini wins. And again, like I teach this. Sometimes I feel funny. I'm on stage. I was recently in October with 100 of the most successful women at Goldman Sachs, right? Like, whoa, okay, here I am up there talking about busy me, best me. And here are your mini wins. Like, oh my God, they may start throwing tomatoes at me.
I love it. But see, that's the thing, right? That's your limiting belief telling you that, right? But you got up there and you did it. And I am sure you made a huge impact in a lot of those women's lives. But I get what you mean, right? Your limiting belief is sitting there when your inner voice is saying, okay, I'm going to tell them to breathe. These people are like super intelligent, very successful people. But I know I love those mini wins. As you were talking about breathing, I was doing it and I hope all the listeners are doing it as well, because I mean, that is something you can do anytime, anywhere, while you're doing any other task, just to kind of bring you back. So I love that, just the deep breathing.
Yeah,
And
just one thing I just want to add to that is that I want to say I've been teaching these practices. I could actually say now, which is kind of scary, that I've been teaching for 40 years, 40, because I started teaching at 15 years old. I was a figure skater and I turned pro and started teaching skating to adults because I wanted to I needed to pay for my skating. So I've been teaching physical and mental practices for 40 years. So I've been through it all, Crissy. I mean, I've taught freaking everything from funk aerobics to step to slide to, hit training to, oh my God, it's exhausting.
I
Just
love the
thinking about it.
slide.
You love the slide? Remember
I
those
love
little,
the slide. That
how
was
about
so
those
fun. The
booties?
booties. Yeah. It was a great inner thigh workout.
Yes. Anyway, how many of you people out there have slides in your basement?
Yeah.
But what I want to say is I've swallowed the whole fish when it comes to wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness. And really, at the end of the day, it really is very simple. The practices are free and simple. And if we can get ourselves to just be consistent, first of all, to trust ourselves and our bodies, which are enormously intelligent and that only want to be balanced. Like if we let go of the steering wheel a little bit, our bodies are going to find their way to balance and health. We don't have to drive so hard all the time. But really just to trust the simple practices. That's why I call them mini wins, because it's kind of silly, but it's true. So if I can do it, you can do it. I just feel like I want to say that over and over again.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. And it is important to, just remember how simple it actually is. But I think one of the words that you use there, which is key, is consistency, right? I mean, and, we've heard it time and time again. Someone tries to meditate for 10 minutes or, one day and then decides to hang it up, or, someone goes to a yoga class or, does a gratitude journal for 2 days and expecting life to change, but just like anything else, any other practice that you have, it has to be something that you do on a consistent basis. And it has to be something, that you adopt as part of your lifestyle. And I think as you do that, that's when you really start to see the change, mentally and then physically as well.
Absolutely.
And the other
Absolutely.
thing that I want to just point out is that, you mentioned that you run the whole gamut on physical and mental health and wellness. And I think that, just like, I don't even know it, probably in the 80s when like the aerobics and everything like that started happening and, physical health really started to come into play, and now it's just, there's a gym on every corner and there's private training everywhere and everyone talks about physical wellness and physical health. And I think we're at that, a critical time when the conversation around mental health and mental wellness, mindfulness, mindset is really starting to break through and become what I'm hoping is more mainstream, that more people can talk about it, talk about mental health, just like we do physical health. And, it doesn't have all the stigma and everything attached to it. And I know that you're doing great, amazing work when it comes to that. So, thank you for that and for all that you do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's all integrated. And what pains me is to see women, especially overtraining physically and not giving themselves enough time for the mental fitness,
Yeah.
for that mental wellness, because at the end of the day, our bodies are going to break down with too much overtraining. And listen, I've owned a yoga studio for 15 years, and I've seen thousands and thousands of people come in and out, and push, 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 and it's not sustainable. And so, can we have a collection of practices that we go to and integrate in a healthy, balanced way? In a way that's going to help us be, feel better, but also be available for people physically, mentally, emotionally, for us to be able to connect and be compassionate out there on a larger scale. And so I heard this quote years ago, and I believe it was Carolyn Mace, who was one of the teachers I studied with early on. And she said, "The greatest gift you can give the world is a fully healthy you. The greatest gift you can give your kids isn't to be of size 2 unless your body is just naturally, balanced that way. But the greatest gift you can give your children and your partner and your communities is to have that balance, that sense of ease and balance physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so it takes awareness, it takes honesty, and it takes a hell of a lot of kindness to oneself.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think as women, we beat the crap out of ourselves. And I've done it, and if we can just turn just even a couple of degrees and start to just be kinder to ourselves I like humor. Again, I write about this. I talk about this all the time is a little bit of humor. So if you think about what you were called as a child, maybe a nickname, one of the names that, one of your parents or brothers, like my brother used to call me Mimi because he couldn't pronounce my name. So Mimi. So I call myself Mimi when I'm just trying to be kind to myself. It's like, come on, Mimi. Come on, you can do this. Or it's silly, Mimi. What'd you do that for? It's like what I really want to say. But seriously, it does break down the barriers, the hardness and God, we beat ourselves up. So once you can start to melt some of that around your heart and find that emotional space, then we can offer to others in a whole new way. And again, this is what helps us to be wholly healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
I just love that. I love that. And I think we should end on the kindness because that is such an important message, to be kind to everyone, especially ourselves. And I know that you have so many other things that I want to share with our listeners, but I'm going to have you back on again for a future episode to talk about, specifically maybe meditation. I know I want to talk about the gut-brain biome, like all these amazing things that you have a wealth of knowledge in. So we're going to have to do that on a future episode. But in the meantime, can you tell listeners where to find you?
Sure. CaraBradley.net, and that's Cara with the C. I have all my stuff there, my podcast and YouTube, and lots of other content on there. And if you're local, Verge Yoga is in Wayne. And
Wayne, Pennsylvania.
Wayne, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah, and just find me on social media. I love engaging with people. I really love questions and engaging, and I so appreciate you having me here on your spanking show.
Oh, thanks, babe. I'm so happy to have you here. So thank you so much. And be sure to check Cara out on her social media platforms and her website. And if you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We would love to hear your feedback. You can share it on an Insta story and tag us on your story at Cara Bradley. I am at Suburban Warrior. And you can also check me out at CrissyPiper.com. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.